Carlos, welcome to the show, brother. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Actually,
100%.
a handshake is there. Yeah.
Long time coming. Dude, for people that don't know you and your story, give us the spark notes. Who you are, where you coming from, what are you doing now?
I'm one of those kind of rags to riches type of story, that you hear every now and then. And if you think about it, right, like there's a lot of entrepreneurs that's their story. It's rags to riches. And in particular mine, I'm an immigrant. I'm an immigrant turned natural citizen, in 2012. It took me I started my paperwork process in 97 and I didn't get my citizenship till 2012. So it took me 15 years to actually get my citizenship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And funny enough, we're sitting here in SD, San Diego, La Jolla. Is this La Jolla? No, this is San Diego.
Yeah.
We're sitting here in San Diego, and after this podcast, I'm gonna go visit where I spent about a year and a half. The first time that I came to this country, my mother her by herself illegally brought me and my brother through a sewer canal in San Isidro, which is right next to Tijuana. Mm-hmm. And she already had a little spot in Escondido. So right after this podcast, I'm gonna drive to Escondido and revisit some of the childhood, stuff, some of the apartments that we lived at and the elementary school that I went to for second grade and a little bit of the third grade. It's called Oak Hill Elementary, the Otters. So right after this podcast, I'm headed there. So yeah, and funny enough, that's how the first time I ever came to this country was literally right here. So there's a very special place in my heart, this area, San Diego in particular. So the first time she brought me over, we lasted a year and a half. And by the time that year and a half, she was working in the fields. That's how she got her immigration paperwork. It was an amnesty. They gave her paperwork through working the fields. And after a little while, she was like, okay, now I'm gonna go get, my sons, right? She left us down there for 2 years while she kind of created a life here. That was her vision was, man, I wanna take my sons away from the poverty, right? Because she already kind of knew what our destiny was in Mexico. Yeah. There's not much of a future there. In Mexico, I always say this and people get upset, but in Mexico, there's no middle class. You're either really healthy and wealthy, right? Like the lawyers and the politicians and the business owners, or you're just dirt poor. And when I say dirt poor, like my grandfather built the house that we lived in, and literally, it's dirt roads and it's a dirt floor and it's plywood and it's 4x4s. And literally the way that we got electricity was butane lamps. And the way that we cooked our food was through fire. And the way that we washed our clothes was through a washing board in the back. You know what I mean? And then my grandfather also built a back house where we would use the restroom. And the way that we took showers was we would warm up the water in a bucket, take a little bucket, and then shower ourselves. That was most of my childhood. So my mom was like, man, we got to do something about that. And she had the vision of trying to make things better and bringing us here, just like your immigrant, every immigrant out there that wants to do better for their family. If they can't get it there where they're at, some very few have the capacity, right, or the will to completely go to a foreign country and try to become something better, and do something good for their families. So that's kind of that's where I come from. That's where I come from. That's how I was raised. Came here. We failed financially. Single mom trying to take care of 2 kids. It was really tough. By the time, a year and a half had passed here, we were literally living under a tree for a weekend. And then we got a ride back to Mexico. And, I just remember my mom kind of looking at me and saying, hey, we're going to get back here. We're going to make it back. And because I was crying, I was in the 3rd grade at this point, and I was crying. I was like, man, this is not good, Mm-hmm. So anyway, we go back to Mexico, and I start bagging groceries, and she starts cleaning hotel rooms, and we start putting our money together, and then we send her to Phoenix. And now she goes to Phoenix, and now she's working the fields out there, and it's 120-degree weather. It's hot. Yeah. Working the fields there, and she saves up enough money. She brings me over first. She pays a guy $25. He jumps me through a fence in Nogales. We come up to Phoenix, And 1997, we start, kind of just doing my process of paperwork, immigration paperwork. Then a little bit of a year and a half later, we go get my brother. And man, I just, I got to see, all these, my mom, the way that she hustled, right? And this particular type of situation it's called modeling, right? Modeling is when you're, because as human beings, we get a lot of our programming comes from the people we see, the people we're seeing every day, whether it's teachers or parents or whoever, mentors, coaches, right? Yeah. So in her case, what I was seeing from her was grit, determination, vision, hard work, sacrifice. Man, like when I tell you this lady was working 2 to 3 jobs a day and sleeping 2 to 4 hours a day just to put food on the table and pay the rent and pay the bills, right? Like that's what she was doing. That's what I got to see. And all my life, all I ever wanted was just to become successful, to take care of my family. Ever since I was a little boy, ever since I was about 5 years old, like I just wanted to take care of my family because of what I saw, And I believe that the 2 biggest reasons why I became, I would say, pretty successful, because there's like success in my opinion. I remember if you were making 6 figures a year, if you made $120,000, in my opinion, you're successful, right? Yeah. Like you're successful. Nobody in my family has ever made $120,000. You know what I mean? Then you make $1 million, and you're like, okay, wow. Nobody in the history of my family has ever made. Then you produce 8 figures. You know what I mean? And then you're like, okay, nobody has ever done it. So when I say praise God that single-handedly, the 2 things that I learned from her for me to be in the position that I am right now is 1, right? She literally had these 5 things working for her that I took and kind of put it as like a 5-step success formula. It's vision, commitment, sacrifice, work ethic, and perseverance. That's when I talk about modeling, like that's what I saw from my mom. She had a vision to bring us over, to bring us to another country. Yeah. She was committed to making that vision happen, right? She made every single sacrifice that you can think of, from leaving her sons to working the fields to not sleeping to whatever, as a single woman, as a single fat mom and being a woman and not speaking English. She still doesn't speak English to this day, right? And she had the work ethic. Like when I tell you this lady was working 2 to 3, jobs a day just to put food on the table, I saw that for over a decade. And then perseverance, like she never gave up, right? And I got those 5 steps from just watching her. So the 2 biggest things that I got from her was that formula, number 1. And then number 2 is she never told me I couldn't do something. You know how a lot of like poor people, they're like, oh, you're just like your father, or they talk about, you're not going to be able to do this. No, that's for the rich people. That's for them. That's not for us. She always said that she would it's like Customato and Mike Tyson. When Customato got Mike Tyson at the age of, 12, 13 years old, Customato was constantly just programming his subconscious mind. You're the best, you're a champion. You're the best boxer in the world. Yeah. You're a monster. No one can touch you. You're a god. Well, my mom was doing that for me in her own way. Hey, you're going to be somebody. You're going to be successful. You can do anything that you want. And praise God, I just, here I am, still climbing my way in a harmonious way. I'm not even forcing it. Like I don't need anyone or anything. And when I say that is, I'm at a point in my life where it's like, man, I get to really choose, like I get to really pick and choose everything in my life right now, right? My relationships, right? My vacations, the amount of time I work, I get to pick and choose everything. I am no longer in any type of survival state, like a state of need. I don't need to be on anybody's stage. I don't need to be on anybody's podcast. I don't need to be collaborating with anybody. I get to pick and choose, right? Do I want to? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do I want to collaborate with Cole? Of course, that's my brother. I love him. We're like, you know, we're soul brothers. You know what I mean? Do I want to come and here, I'll tell you the way, this is the way, like, I'm not a transactional person. I'm old school. You know, I'm Mexican. You know, I was brought up different. Like, I'm not a transactional person. And if you know anything about Mexican people, is like, when we show you love, like, it's real love. It's not fake love. You know, it's not like today's society. Like, if I show you love, then I show you love, right? Yeah. And with Cole, anytime he's ever asked me to do anything, man, you know, he's like, you know, hey, I want you to come down. Here we are. I want you to come down to my mastermind, speak on how you grew your businesses and what you're doing in the private equity space and all that, right? And I'm like, okay, done. He's like, all right, bro, I'm going to get you everything. What do you need? You need first class plane tickets, presidential suite, all, whatever, right? And I'm like, you know what, bro? I said, I'm tired of planes. I said, man, I got to go. I got to speak. I got to speak in Atlanta. I'm speaking. It's funny. Next weekend, I'm speaking with Emma Lett, Bradley, Sean Whalen at MenaceCon. MenaceCon's almost like they're in the service industry too, roofing, plumbing, all that. By the way, I love that industry. Like, that's why I'm going to start, like, getting involved. That's why I love this connection. Yeah. I want to get involved in that industry because that's where my heart is. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's where my heart is. I love that service-driven blue-collar industry. That's how I grew up. You know what I mean? So anyway, you know, here I am. Cole's like, hey man, plane tickets. Well, I said, hey, you know what, bro? I'm good. I'm going to be flying out a couple times this month. I'm going to drive. Yeah. I'm going to drive one of my cars to you. You don't have to worry about that. You know, no gas. Let me get your gas. No, we're good. He's like, all right, well, at least let me get your room. Cool, just get the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for the record, like, Cole told me the same exact thing. Like, I want people to understand that you're not just saying that for a show. Like, Cole told me this exact story, and it's spot on. And I thought it was really cool as he was sharing it. So. Wow.
Well, yeah, there it is. So that's how, I'm not a transactional guy. I don't need any. You know, I don't need you to help me with anything. If I love you, and there's real love there, like, I'm gonna serve you, man. Like, you just say the word, and I'm there, and that's the relationship that him and I have. But anyway, man, all of that, you know, has led to where I am today. You know, my mom's sacrifices and her affirmations and her proclamations, right? Well, I'll tell you what. You know, as an immigrant, I always had the entrepreneur mindset, right? I always wanted to be successful. And, you know, it was tough for me because, you know, I wasn't legal in this country. Like, I wasn't born, like, every single person in this room was born with a social security number. Like, you guys already have an advantage over me. I couldn't work because I didn't have a social security. You know what I mean? Yeah. I couldn't go back home and visit because I didn't have a green card. I didn't have a passport, right? So I had to work my way literally through the mud, and I tried a lot of different things, man. I tried flipping cars. I tried flipping clothes with Mexican regional artists. I almost became a multimillionaire twice with certain artists out there, and all of that didn't work out. And then in 2012, 2013, I read a $10 book called Flip by Nick Reyes, and it talked about real estate wholesaling. It was like, hey, you want to be a multimillionaire real estate entrepreneur and you don't have a real estate license and you don't have credit and you don't have money, you could still do this. And I was like, sign me up. Like, that meets my criteria, you know, like, check. So then I read this little $10 book, and he's become a really good friend of mine now, Nick Reyes. I read this little $10 book, and it told me to go put out bandit signs. So then I put out bandit signs, and, you know, 2,400 bandit signs, and 6 months later, I got my first deal, you know, through a Hispanic lady that sold.
6 months.
6 months, 2,400 bandit signs. I got my first deal. See, most people aren't willing to work 6 months without pay.
Yep.
Your purpose has to be so big that you are willing to endure 6 months of going out on the street on a Friday night from 11 p.m. to 2, 3 in the morning on Saturday for 6 months, every single weekend, religiously. That's how much fire has to be in your belly to not quit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%.
So then I got my first deal, and I was like, I'm holding this check, and I'm like, damn, you know, like, this is the most money I've ever made in one shot, right? And then I'm like, how can I do this again? So then I just started doing it. Brother, since 2013, my business partner and I, we're probably over 1,300 transactions in like wholesaling and fix and flipping. And, you know, that's where I made a big name for myself in that space.
Yep.
Right? And I was able, in 2018, I started teaching people how to build multiple 7-figure real estate acquisition operations. That's how I made my name there, right? Made my name in real estate wholesaling and fix and flipping. I taught a bunch of people out there. I started doing events, just pretty much giving out the blueprint. You know, people like Pace Morby came, Ryan Pineda came, Austin Rutherford came, Donovan Ruffin came. I literally just taught the entire industry, right? By the way, I didn't mentor the entire industry. I mentored a lot of people in the industry, but I gave the blueprint to a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I gave the blueprint. I was charging $5,000 a seat for people to come learn this back in 2018. Anyway, so I started crushing it with real estate wholesaling, fix and flipping. I started crushing it in the education space. And then I started venturing off to other businesses, right? I started launching software as service businesses. I launched a medical company in 2016, and then I bought out another medical company in 2019 for $350K, right? And then we launched our BPO company, which is callgeeks.com. I own and operate now 12 companies. One of them is a real estate acquisitions company, but everything else is so diverse. You know what I mean? And if you think about it, I don't know where I would be right now, or I don't know what kind of time I would be having if I didn't, if I put all my eggs in one basket, right? This is why people say it's very important for people to really diversify and kind of expand their portfolio. You know what I mean? Because, real estate just went through a tough little season, right? What if everything depended on real estate for me? I would have had some challenging months, right? Yeah. But I have so many other businesses that, I'm like, okay, well, this isn't doing good. Well, that's fine. These are doing great. We'll keep funding this and sustaining it until we get through the season, right? It's cyclical anyway. So, and then now I have equity in 17 companies in the last, so I own and operate 12, and then 5 of them have been acquisitions in the private equity space.
Got it.
So in the last 60 days, I acquired 10% of a $10 million gross revenue per year company that has it's called MRR, monthly recurring revenue, of $185K. Well, it has a net profitability of $185K a month, but the monthly recurring revenue is $150 subscription based, right? So I acquired 10% of that for a couple $100,000. And we're gonna, the guy, he's gonna crush that thing. He's gonna get it up to where we try to exit that company at 40 mil on the conservative side, with the stretch goal of 100 mil. So you can imagine what's 10% of 40 mil. That's 4 mil there, or 100 mil, right? Whatever happened, that's that. I acquired 20% of another company called smartuv.shop, kind of environmental tech company. I acquired another percentage in Healthier Motion. So I'm in all these other ventures now as a venture capitalist, particularly in the private equity space, with the objective of merging and selling, exiting. So that's kind of where I am now today, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how you should always try. You're not ever going to be able to expand and venture out into other businesses if you don't know how to automate and systemize your primary business and completely replace yourself. Yeah. So that's what my talk is about today, and that's kind of like where I'm at now, man. It's like, that's my I love teaching people how to do that, because I go to the office about 24 hours a week, Monday, Tuesday, 6. Wednesday is my spiritual day. I take that off, and then Thursday, Friday I work. So that's how much I work, and I run these multiple 8-figure organization. You know what I mean? So if I know how to do that, I got the blueprint to do that. Why not teach people how to do that? Because what are we, like, in my opinion, what I'm always constantly looking to do is leverage 2 things: time and money and time. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's it. I'm always looking at, even with taxes. right? What are we looking to leverage? Money, right? I'll give you an example. Buzzer beater, December 30th, 31st. I went and bought one of my dream cars. I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna have an electrical vehicle, I'm gonna go buy my dream car. And what's my dream car? My electrical vehicle dream car? A Porsche Taycan Turbo. So I'm like, okay, so if I buy this vehicle at, 6 figures, well, that's gonna take away from my taxable income, boop, and then I'm probably gonna save now in cash. It was the vehicle was 150,000, right? So okay, 150K right off taxable income, and then that's about, I normally would have paid, even on the low side, let's just say 30%, right? Spend 150K on this, boom, it gets taken away from my taxable income, and it's about $45,000 I would have paid in physical cash to the IRS. Well, if you buy $45,000 by a $2,000 monthly payment, that's 22 months that I get to drive this vehicle, for what is that, almost 2 years, you know what I mean? And so it works out perfect, right? That's kind of where I am now, right? In my journey is like, how can I leverage time? How can I leverage money? You know what I mean? So that's why I love teaching people how to replicate themselves and how to pretty much how to platform. Like how can I help you platform your business to where you have everything you need? Systems, processes, departments, SOPs, the personnel, you can hire all the way from the ground level to a C-suite executive, profit sharing, like everything. That's where my journey is now. And this is the most fun I've ever had in business, man.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you built up the real estate, that's where you built your name, and that essentially gave you the ability to then transcend into all these other industries because you figured out how to systemize, you've built the cash flow, and then you can go and rinse it.
Yes, sir.
That's how I view coaching and consulting for me. I'm sure I'll always do this forever. I just might not charge for it in 20 years. Yeah. Right? But I can leverage the cash flow because there's solid margin in the coaching and consulting space. We're solving really big problems, and then I can go and build my business portfolio because I've done all the personal development, right? Because building a business is great personal development. Building a coaching business is a whole different level of opening bottlenecks for yourself. Talk to me. There's two things I'm really curious about. Number one is you kind of touched on this, is the systemization and moving into all these different industries. So I guess like the similarities between the two and like really creating a game that you're obviously having a ton of fun with right now. And then before we jump out of here, because I know that you have to, you get to have this cool experience, go and visit this other part of town, but I'm really curious about, and I asked you this on the panel yesterday, around how you build this harmony with your life and the boundaries that you so clearly set. You mentioned Wednesday you take off for your spiritual day, and you talked about not walking through the garage door on the phone. Like, I'd love for you to touch on that as well. Yeah, I love that, and I think a lot of your audience is a blue collar audience, right? Which my favorite people in the world. They're just my favorite people in the world. You know why I love the blue collar space? And I say this with all my heart because they're the hardest working people, and they have a lot of good fundamentals, their core values, they're ethical, they're honorable, you know what I mean? This is why I love the blue collar space, and this is why I want to connect with people like you, and I want to connect with the roofers, and I want to connect with the HVACs, and I want to connect with the garage people. Tommy Mello, that's my boy. Tommy Mello is a good friend of mine, and he's crushing, by the way. I don't know if you ever interviewed Tommy, but I got to get you with him. I got you. But anyway, man, the first couple years of whatever it is that you're building, it's gonna be rough. You know what I mean? Like, a smooth sea never created a good sailor, right? So your first couple of years, your first year, your second year, your third year, maybe even 5 years in, it's gonna be time to grind, right? But I believe that you can shave off some of that grind and some of that time by hiring a coach that is, hey, you're 3 years in now and you're still working 80 hours a week and you are still completely disconnected from your family. Like, they're not even a priority. That's not the way. This is the way.
this is the way. Let's put together some systems and some processes and some people in place that allow you to go home at a reasonable time. I'm home by like 3, 4 o'clock. I'm in the office between 10:30 and 11, right? For the most part, 10:30, 11. I try to leave by 3 or 4 and I'm home by 4, whatever. And it's like, let's do that. Why don't we get you there? What if I told you that you can make the same amount of money you're making now, or maybe more, but you'll have a lot more time to spend with the people you love and time to do the things that you love to do. You like working out, you like going hiking, you like going on trips with your fam. What if we can do that, right? I believe that if people aren't even aware that that is a possibility, they need to start asking themselves that. Right? On a scale from 1 to 10, like, where is my connection to my wife? Where's my connection to my kids? Right? On a scale from 1 to 10, what kind of provider am I? Oh, I'm an 8, I'm a 9, I'm a 10. Great. What kind of husband am I? What kind of father am I? And people think that one thing has to suffer in order for the other thing to work, and it doesn't. It's actually the other way around from my experience now, having all these companies, right? If you take care of home and you create harmony at home and that becomes your charging station, you're gonna crush the other side, because now you have this drive and you have this fire inside you that you're able to just, when you go to work, man, you're moving the needle, right? Because now the creation process is, because what is business? Creativity. That's all it is. I connect with you, you connect me there, I connect this guy to you. I know, you know the what, okay, well, I know the who. It's just a bunch of creativity, right? Like, we're all just creating. Yeah. The creation process is so much easier, and now what would have normally taken you a month to move that needle, it's probably take you less than a week, because you're so clear, because you're so balanced. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, 100%. Right? So take care of home. I said this yesterday. I said, you asked me that question, and I said, hey, raise your hand. It's like, raise your hand if your family's the number one priority. Everybody's gonna raise their hand, right? Raise your hand if your schedule states, like physically or whatever, visually, that your family is your number one priority. Yeah. Right? Remember what I told you? I said, hey man, I schedule around my family. I don't schedule my family around my work schedule. I schedule my work around my family. That's something I learned from Sean Terry many years ago. Yeah. Because he's a pretty good dude and someone I look up to, and sure thing, he was like, he taught me the zigzag method. I go hard, and I already know that I have a destination with my family. I'm out, right? And then he's like, I schedule everything around my family, whatever they got going on. And I'm like, hey babe, here's my schedule. Fill in, tell us where we're going, tell us what, whatever, and then I just schedule around that. Dude,
it's so good, and this is a conversation that I was having with Cole the other night. Again, I keep saying, I don't know when these...
He's made that, by the way, Cole's made that big transition. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, and it's so cool, and I was saying this to Danny earlier, right before this interview. It's like, that's why I stay in these communities, right? Because I look at people like Cole, and I look at people like Danny, and I look at, now that I've had the opportunity to learn from you, like I look at people like you guys who are operating in a season that I'm not in yet, right? Like I got married 3-4 months ago.
Congrats.
So, thank you. And like right now, like the season that I'm in, like the schedule dictates that, right? And or let me say that a different way that's a little clearer. My schedule dictates the season that I'm in, and I'm doing it in a way that, like, when I get to the next season, I'm very clear what I want it to look like. So like, okay, I understand that if I know my wife is getting home from her business at 5 or 6 o'clock, like I don't want to be on Zoom calls more than past 5:30.
Oh my God.
Right? So like if I want to do that, I need to make sure.
To me, it's foreign. You know what I mean? Yeah. To me, you saying something like that is like, I can't even imagine that anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like 100%. Zoom calls at home? Yeah. Like, no, thank you. You know what I mean? No, nuh-uh.
Exactly. No. So it's like, okay, I know that I'm gonna wake up at 4 o'clock, get like 2.5 hours of work in before the gym. Yeah. And then I go to the gym, and then my day is like 9 to 5:30, and my team knows that like I'm off. Like that's family time from then because my wife is home. Good. Right. But in a year and a half, 2 years, whenever, like if we, when we get to the point where we're starting to build a family, like I don't want to be one of those people that are claiming that I'm working so hard for my family and then sacrificing that very thing for the business.
Yep.
Right? Which is why I have so much respect for how you guys operate and why that's like the only focus for me right now.
If I don't take care of home, brother, I feel like a fraud.
Yeah.
My wife, myself, my kids, I got a 10-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter. We've already FaceTimed multiple times today. Like if I'm not, I sent them a good morning message at like 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm not taking care of, like that's it, bro. I have a lot of uncertainty in my life, right? A lot of uncertainty. Business is uncertainty. You know that,
yeah.
Right? Every day, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I have a lot of uncertainties in my life. And I called 2 days ago, I told my wife, hey babe, I have a lot of uncertainties in my life. But I said, but the one thing that I'm very, very grateful for is the certainty of how much I love you and how much I love my children and what we have. Mm-hmm. Like that is the one thing that is certain for me.
Yeah.
My family is the one thing in the world. My health isn't even certain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like my family and their love and my ability to love them is the only certainty that I have.
Yeah.
Like those are, and by the way, I had like my life, I was going to show you, I even, I messaged my mom this morning, right? At 8:15, I messaged her. I just wanted you to look at the blue, what is the blue unread, how many unread messages do I have?
1,088.
1,088 unread messages. What does that tell you?
That's a lot of priority for those to be the messages that are being diligently answered and sent.
My life is literally on a do not disturb.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And I know, remember yesterday when someone was like, somebody said, I don't want to bother you because you're busy. And then I looked at Danny, I said, I love that people think that we're busy. Remember I said that?
Yeah.
Because you get what I'm saying? Like I don't have to, I can go to the gym, I can go on my hikes, I can take care of my family. Keep thinking I'm busy, because I am. You see what I'm saying,
yeah,
right?
100%.
So for me, it's very simple, brother. It's like my priorities are like me and my health, right? Taking care of me, because if I don't take care of me, then other things aren't taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So it's very simple. It's like taking care of my health, having a connection and serving my family, giving them the best of me, not the rest of me, which a lot of people unfortunately do,
Yep.
right? They give their families the rest of them when they get home. They've already given their businesses the best of them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I want to give my family the best of me, not the rest of me, right? So that's number 2. And number 3, man, it's just like continuing to try to create this, these beautiful business ventures in a harmonious way, not in a forceful way, right? It's like power versus force, Mm-hmm. I want to move the needle with the least amount of resistance. You know what I mean? It's like, if God says, hey, grossing multiple 9 figures a year is going to cost you this, and this, and this, and this, I'm going to say, well, then no, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he says, well, here's your ideal threshold, right? At this, like you get to have all of it, your cake, your ice cream, everything, right? At this gross revenue a year, then that's where I'm going to be, because that's what matters most to me, is just like operating in harmony. You know what I mean? I don't want to feel pressured. I don't want to feel like I don't want to feel that pain that I felt, building my life where it is now,
Yeah. That was such a cool conversation yesterday, having everyone on that panel and Dan as well, talking about like understanding the trade-offs, right? And I think it really just comes down to clarity and intentionality, right? Which is a lot of what you're talking about, like getting really clear on your calendar, making sure that it's built the right way, right? And like inclusive of and like basically around what actually matters, not what we claim matters, and then we live out of alignment with that, which I think is so good. Carlos, where can people find you on social? Where can people follow along with your journey, learn more about what you're doing? Like, plug away.
Carlos Reyes on Instagram, Carlos Reyes, Reyes. And I'm always, I try to get back to people. Actually, on Instagram, that's still me personally. Like there's Pat Hilton, he's in there, and I got another VA. But I try to look at those messages as often as I can, because I remember when I was coming up in my journey, like I was constantly trying to, get knowledge, and just direction from people. So if people reach out, Carlos Reyes on Instagram, I'll always try to do my best to get back to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Love it. Guys, that's in the show notes. Get connected, show some love, all that fun stuff. Carlos, last question I have for you. Going all the way back, right? Growing up in Mexico, making your way here, right? And starting to get into the real estate space, all of those flyers that you were putting out and working the crazy hours 6 months before your first deal, all the lessons that you had learned from your mother growing up, the 5-part formula, right? And then learning that system that really worked, thriving through real estate, taking that money, taking that experience, and now transcending into all these different industries, massive portfolio, multiple multi-8-figure companies, all while working 24. We won't tell them that you're not that busy. Don't worry, this is just between you and us.
Got it.
It's this entire window, okay? What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned that has yielded the most results and had the biggest impact on your life and in your business?
Man, that is a great question. And I'll tell you what, again, I said it earlier, right? Leverage time, leverage money. Leverage time, leverage money. How can I how can I accomplish that with not such a heavy lift? And, not such a heavy lift. So like working my butt off and literally killing myself to try to attain this goal. And how can I get there quicker? It's like, right? How can I attain that without killing myself, but yet with a good amount of speed, right? I think proximity is one of the biggest. Like, look at what you're doing. You're around people. It's modeling. Right? Remember when I talked about modeling? Yeah. You're around people that like. I only try to get around people now that I wouldn't mind trading one of my days of my lives with one of their days of their lives. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's it. Like, my relationships, that's what they consist of. Like, if I wouldn't trade a day in my life for your life, then I don't even think we're not even like, you know what I mean? We're not even on the same page. So there's really not a lot of fireworks there, right? So that's what I would, proximity, get around people that you either want their life, like you want to be able to produce a good amount of gross revenue or have the kind of family life that they have or whatever. I think that's what people need to be trying to get themselves there as soon as possible. Get around the right people.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Thanks for joining me, brother.
Yes, sir.